करते हैं. There is the cloud information service. Think about cloud information service like this. You want to run some experiment and you want to know कि आपके पास डेटा सेंटर का आर्किटेक्चर क्या है, कौन सा ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम है, या कितने उसमें होस्ट हैं, या हाउ मेनी वर्चुअल मशीन्स आर देयर. सो ऑल दिस इंफॉर्मेशन आर रिक्वायर्ड टू रन सम काइंड ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंट. एंड वेयर डू यू गेट दोज इंफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम? यू गेट दोज इंफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम अ क्लाउड इन्फो सर्विस. तो बेसिकली इट्स अ रजिस्ट्री जहाँ पे आपके जितने भी रिसोर्सेज हैं, चाहे वो आपके स्टोरेज रिसोर्सेज हों, कंप्यूटेशनल रिसोर्सेज, नेटवर्किंग के रिसोर्सेज हों, वंस यू मॉडल देम इन यूर क्लाउडसिम एनवायरनमेंट, तो क्लाउडसिम की जो इंफॉर्मेशन सर्विस है ये रिसोर्सेज के साथ रजिस्टर हो जाते हैं. एंड देन यू कैन क्यूरी देम फॉर एग्जांपल to run some kind of an experiment. And who will query this information service? That is your data center broker actually. So when we try to understand broker, ये बिल्कुल वो real life की example है. If you want to buy some property, you have no idea, you will go to a middleman. If you want to buy a car, you don't know the engine, you don't know what models are in, reliability, other factors, you will go to a middleman, right? If you want to run an experiment on Amazon EC2, for instance, you have no idea how it works, what is the cost, so you will go to a middleman and the expert who will perform this experiment on your behalf. So the same concept is applied here. We have a data center brokers, and the broker will collect the cloudlets from the user and then execute or maps those cloudlets to virtual machine. कैसे करता है अभी मैं आपको डायग्रामेटिकली उनसे है वो दिखा भी देता हूँ. एंड देन देयर आर सम स्केड्यूलिंग पॉलिसी, टाइम एंड स्पेस शेयर एंड एलोकेशन पॉलिसीज. अभी हम उसको डायग्रामेटिकली भी जिनसे है मैं आपको मेंशन कर देता हूँ. बट लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द फर्स्ट वन, एंड दैट्स द क्लाउड इंफॉर्मेशन सर्विस एंड द ब्रोकर. नाउ एज आई सेड दैट क्लाउड इंफॉर्मेशन सर्विस, that is your registry. So whatever your registry contain, the broker will consult the registry for getting the information, and then the broker will collect the clouds. Now the collection of the cloud, it will be from the user, and then on behalf of the user it will create some kind of virtual machine. Those virtual machine will be mapped, and the task will be mapped to the virtual machine, and then we will execute them and we will get our final result as well. So this CIS service, it's an automatic, as a मतलब developer, as a user आप इसके साथ कुछ छेड़छाड़ नहीं करते. So whenever you start your CloudSim framework, it started automatically and all the resources are registered with it automatically, right? Now this is something very important, and that's the scheduling. So जब भी हम scheduling की बात करते हैं, scheduling आपके पास task की VM पर भी हो सकती है, और VM की आपके scheduling जो सी है वो host पर भी हो सकती है. So there are these two possibilities. लेकिन जब हम scheduling policies की बात करते हैं, so we simply say, let's suppose these are some tasks and we want to map them onto a virtual machine. सो अब इनको कैसे मैप करना है, उसके लिए हमारे पास दो तरीके हैं. एक को हम कहते हैं टाइम शेयर्ड पॉलिसी, और दूसरे को हम कहते हैं स्पेस शेयर्ड पॉलिसी. सो लेट्स डिस्कस द टाइम शेयर्ड पॉलिसी फर्स्ट, एंड यू आर फेमिलियर विद इट फ्रॉम योर ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम परस्पेक्टिव. मैं आपको क्विक रिमाइंडर दे देता हूँ. रिमाइंडर क्या है, अगर आपको याद हो तो आपके पास क्या होता था कि यू सपोज्ड यू हैव one processor and it can perform some kind of computation, and there are a list of tasks who are waiting for execution. So what you do, you pick the first task, you assign it to your processor, and after some time either the task is completed or it is blocked. इस diagram को आप remember करें, right? So what we do, this processor, this device, this is shared among these tasks. लेकिन कैसे शेयर होता है कि थोड़ी देर के लिए टास्क 1 को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, उसके बाद थोड़ी देर के लिए क्या करेगा, टास्क 2 को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, एंड सो ऑन. सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सच एन आर्किटेक्चर, हम कहते हैं कि बेसिकली ये टाइम शेयर्ड पॉलिसी है. सो मल्टीपल टास्क शेयर द CPU, एंड for example, it's a fair policy if we think about this policy from the round robin perspective. Context switching ka overhead, that's the only disadvantage of the time shared policy. Now the other policy is space shared, and the space shared policy, to understand, let's take another example, and here we talk about the RAM of your system, right? So whenever you load processes, what happens, P1 will come and have some space in the memory, then P2 will come and have some space in the memory, and so on. With each process आपके पास वो RAM को क्या करेगा, space उसमें से ले लेगा. So what's happening in this particular example is that these two processes are sharing this physical resource at the same time, तो इसको हम कहते हैं कि ये कौन सी पॉलिसी है, स्पेशियड पॉलिसी, राइट. सो डेडिकेटेड हमारे पास, इफ़ यू डेडिकेट कोर्स फॉर द प्रोसेसिंग, तो हम कहते हैं कि कौन सी पॉलिसी होगी, special policy, and there is a simultaneous execution because P1 and P2 are holding the RAM at the same time. So the advantage is the performance isolation, but we can have the fragmentation issues. For instance, memory की बात करें तो internal और external fragmentation हो सकती है. CloudSim का जो advantage है वो ये है, you can switch between these two, right? So you can have a space shared or time shared at both levels, cloudlet levels पे और virtual machine level पे, and to that we will talk about these policies कि basically हम allocation कैसे करते हैं और provisioning कैसे करते हैं. So let's take the allocation, and in this particular case we simply want to answer this question that which VM will be hosted on which particular host. That's it. And for that, if you have multiple VMs, so suppose that is one virtual machine, that is another virtual machine, that is another virtual machine, and there are two hosts available. Now you have the option to map them, and you can map them all on the same, or you can map these two here and this one here. So answering this question, we can have a first fit, we can have a random fit, a round robin, and there are other allocation policies available as well. जब हम प्रोविजनिंग की बात करते हैं तो प्रोविजनिंग हम कहते हैं कि आपका वर्कलोड कैसा है. सो इफ़ यू हैव अ प्री डिटरमिन्ड वर्कलोड, यू ऑलरेडी नो व्हाट विल हैपन, किस टाइप की रिक्वेस्ट आएंगी, यू आर रनिंग सम काइंड ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंट, यू ऑलरेडी नो कि आपके पास कितने रिसोर्सेज रिक्वायर्ड हैं, तो उसकी प्रोविजनिंग की पॉलिसी स्टैटिक है, प्री डिटरमिन्ड है. बट इफ़ यू डोंट नो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ वर्कलोड यू विल एक्सपेक्ट, यू कैन हैव सडन पीक्स एंड बम्स एंड कुछ ऐसी किस्म की सिचुएशन है, तो फिर हम कहते हैं कि हमारे पास क्या है, डायनामिक प्रोविजनिंग होगी. सो यू कैन प्रोविजन all the resources, so CPU, RAM, bandwidth, all the provisioners are available. You have the static provisioners and you also have the dynamic provisioners available for this particular thing. And this is actually one of the core area for research. So let's suppose you want to reduce the cost, or you want to improve the performance. So what you can do, you can play with these allocation policies, and you can play with these resource policies, or you can propose your own one and embed it into the existing CloudSim. So if you are a researcher, if you are a student doing your final projects, this is one of the area जहाँ पे आपके पास बहुत सारी opportunities हैं research के point of view से. So when we talk about these core components and also the auxiliary component, I want to also show these auxiliary components here in a diagram. So as you can see here now, it's the same data center, it's the same data center, and we have a host and virtual machine and cloudlets. We already discussed that, but these are the supporting components. So that's the cloud information service. It will get all the information from your data center and it can provide those to your broker. Broker क्या काम करेगा? Cloudlets collect करेगा on behalf of the user. It will assign it to VM. Whenever we assign this cloudlet, हमारे पास कोई ना कोई scheduler होगा जो कि मतलब assign करेगा. बिल्कुल इसी तरह when we have VM, we can map those VM to our host. Once again, we will have some kind of scheduler. So we can have a cloudlet scheduler, we can have a VM scheduler as well, right? And these are the provisioning policies कि static है या आपके पास dynamic है, right? And once we have these are the allocation policies. So allocation policies means कि कौन सा VM किस पे host करेगा. Scheduler means कि वो किस type का होगा. For instance, we have the time shared, or we have the space shared scheduler as well. So when we think about the flow of this experimentation, तो जब हम simulation flow की बात करते हैं, it works something like this. So we need to initialize the CloudSim, and then we will create a data center, broker, we need to create virtual machine, cloudlets. We need all of these components one by one, and after creating all these things, what we need to do, we need to start our simulation, and then we can execute, we can collect our results. So for example, execution time क्या है, cost क्या है, यूटिलाइजेशन मॉडल्स अगर चेंज करते हैं तो उसका क्या अफेक्ट होता है. बट वंस अगेन let me show them diagrammatically. So here if you can see, we have these cloudlets, and cloudlets are submitted to your broker, right? So broker is that middleman which works on behalf of you. So what does the broker do? It asks the cloud information service कि basically हमारे data center में क्या क्या मौजूद है, and the cloud information is an automatic entity, खुद ब खुद start हो जाती है. It works with your data center, so it has all the information about your data center, right? Once the cloud broker gets all these information, what it can do, it can submit the cloudlets to this data center. लेकिन ये submission कैसे होगी? Of course, it will be submitted to the VM. VMs are part of the host. Hosts are the part of a data center. Right? So this is the basic simulation flow of running any kind of experiment in a CloudSim. So if you want to work with a CloudSim, what you need JDK on your system. आपको कोई ना कोई IDE required होगी. You can do it Eclipse, you can do it NetBeans. It's Java based. You can have IntelliJ और ये configuration बड़ी आसान है. I will provide some links and you can check them out. CloudSim की libraries हैं. There are many different versions available. I will also share the link so you can also experiment with different versions. And there is one important thing, and then is the example folder. So example folder contains many built-in applications, built problems जहाँ पे आप उसके मतलब understand भी कर सकते हैं, and you can create your own example code in those particular folder. So yes, that's it for today. If we look at the CloudSim, we can model data center, host, virtual machine, task, each and everything. We can have provisioning policies, we can have scheduling policies. So in our next lecture, we will cover a very basic example, hands-on cloud code के basically कैसे cloud का code लिखेंगे और उसको कैसे compile और execute करेंगे. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching.